The first time that Oda teased an upcoming great incident, it turned out to be the Marineford War. This time, the incident that Oda is teasing is the start of the final war. All signs point to the Egghead Island incident being the destruction of punk records, flooding the world with uncontrolled brainwaves of information, with everyone simultaneously gaining access to Vegapunk's stored knowledge regarding the history of the world and the truth of the world government. This incident would be the moment that the curtain is pulled back on the truth of the One Piece dystopia, the revelatory moment for every kingdom and island that they are in fact living under an evil authoritarian regime that has been silencing people left and right to hide the truth. As the first arc of the final saga of One Piece, of course it makes sense that Egghead Island would kick off the final conflict of One Piece, and all signs point to this Egghead Island incident being the great trigger. The destruction of punk records is the catalyst for the war. And who else would be the cause of it than the man who upheaves the established order wherever he goes, Straw Hat Luffy. Let me break down why all signs point to the arc concluding with this incident, the destruction of punk records at the hands of Luffy. So before we get into it, make sure to subscribe for more videos every week. And just as York snuck up on Vegapunk, so too can big companies and cybercriminals sneak up on you while you're surfing the web, unless you have Surfshark VPN, the sponsor for this video. When you're online, you are at risk of having your data being acquired by companies or cybercriminals. But with Surfshark VPN, your data is encrypted. What does that mean? Well, it means that you are essentially completely invisible online. No one can get your data, no one can track what you're doing, even Surfshark itself does not know what you do online. Not to mention, all ads and malware are blocked as well. And the best part is, with Surfshark VPN, you can change your location online to anywhere you want on the globe, meaning that you can virtually travel to other countries and get instant access to all the free movies, TV, sports, etc. that they have available for streaming that isn't available in your country. So, a whole new world of options in terms of what you can watch immediately opens up once you use Surfshark VPN. And yes, that includes more anime. And for my viewers, you can actually get Surfshark right now today for 83% off and 3 months free by using my code MORGE. The link is in the description below. And you get a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you have literally zero risk trying it out. Again, just hit the link in the description below and use my code MORGE. So that aside, before getting into the details of Egghead Island itself, we need to work backwards. This is the final saga. We know that the final saga will conclude with a great war against the world government. The world government has been the true final boss of the story for the longest time. Overthrowing the celestial dragons at the head of the world government is what the Will of D has been about all along. Everything is of course heading in this direction as the climax of One Piece. But there has always been one major thing missing for this final war, which is the truth. Why would anyone rise up against the world government? The countless nations and people of the world don't know. They don't know the true nature of the world government. Even places the Straw Hats have saved, like Drum Kingdom, Alabasta, Water 7, Dressrosa, and so on, they don't know that the world government is evil. And even these islands have zero reason to rise up against it. The world is so dystopic precisely because the world government has been able to successfully spin the narrative that the government is always just, and anyone that disobeys it is evil. That was the key aspect of the world government's rule that was emphasized from the moment that its true nature was revealed in Enies Lobby. The focus was not just on the fact that it is an oppressive government, it was on the fact that it has a monopoly on the truth. This was the true tragedy of Ohara, and the true tragedy of Robin. Not just that the government wiped out an entire civilization, not just that a little girl was hunted for decades, it was the fact that despite being helpless victims, Robin and the Oharans were actually framed as the villains that deserved to be punished. It was this twisting of the truth, to commit such heinous abuses of authority and then to lie to the entire world so that everyone takes the side of the world government and joins in on hunting the supposed demons of Ohara. That was the true evil of the world government. And that's also what makes the world government such an unassailable foe. As Robin explains in Enies Lobby, to go against the world government isn't just about manpower. To go against the world government is to go against the world, because the rest of the world will always believe that the world government is in the right. That is why every righteous force for good in the story, the Straw Hat Pirates, the Whitebeard Pirates, the Roger Pirates, The revolutionaries, whenever they go against the world government, they are always publicly cast in the role of villains, as evil terrorists trying to destroy the world order. No one knows the truth about Ohara, no one knows the truth of Lulusia Kingdom, and that is the ultimate problem. That as long as no one knows the truth, defeating the world government can never bring a true dawn to the world. Imagine if the world government were to be overthrown tomorrow by pirates and revolutionaries. The entire rest of the world would basically view it as the worst thing possible, the complete collapse of just order. Most countries would never understand that something truly great and positive has happened for them. They would view it as the worst possible outcome and an absolute victory for evil terrorist forces. Yes, there are some abandoned islands that are aware that the world government isn't good, but these are far and few between. The point is that even the general populaces of nations like Alabasta or cities like Water 7 would never have any reason to believe that the world government being defeated is a good thing. And there certainly would never be a cause for these types of islands to try and actively rise up and join the fight against the world government in a war. It's really not so easy as just having the Straw Hats and the revolutionaries defeat the world government and then them telling the world that, hey, these guys that we took out were secretly really bad. It's the same exact reason everyone thought it was the end of the world when Whitebeard was fighting against the world government. No one would have viewed Whitebeard's victory as a good thing. The Marines' victory was widely celebrated. If Whitebeard had won, even though we the reader know that's good, for the rest of the world it would be viewed as the end of civilization and order. I think we can assume that when the world government is truly defeated in the modern day, it will be important that most nations and people understand that this is the right, just thing that is happening, and that the world is in fact now entering a new dawn, an age of freedom. At the end of the day, freedom is what matters. For One Piece to truly be the ultimate epic about creating a world of freedom, well, the crucial component is the people of the world need to first realize that they are not currently free. Only then can the defeat of the world government feel like a wave of freedom sweeping the world. As such, for the world government to be unveiled for the villains that they are, for there to be a reason for the nations of the world to wish to rise up and fight against the government, for the nations to at least realize that they are not currently free, the world government's monopoly on truth must be destroyed. That is an absolute necessity before the final war. And it goes both ways. The world government needs a reason to go to war as well. So far, the government's just been sneakily erasing lights from history on the down low as they've been doing, like with Lulusia Kingdom. But there's nothing yet to cause them to go full mask off and just go to war. The Gorosei have already hinted at possibly needing to perform a great cleansing soon, but we have yet to see any sort of trigger that would make them act on this. So what if everything in the final saga so far is leading to the same trigger? The moment the world realizes the truth about the world government. This could naturally be the same moment that the world government has to hit the panic button and actually go on the offensive and begin its great cleansing. So starts the final war. And here's the crazy thing. This all isn't just a hypothetical. What if I told you that this entire scenario that I just described, this exact same sequence of events, it has already happened in the story once before? There was, in fact, a complete arc that foreshadowed this entire exact series of events. Dressrosa. I have already done a complete arc analysis explaining how Dressrosa is very blatantly and explicitly meant to be a microcosm of the entire world of One Piece. You can click on that video on the top right. But here is the short version. The One Piece world is ruled by celestial dragons. Dressrosa is ruled by a celestial dragon. The celestial dragons took over the world by deposing the ancient kingdom and rewriting history to make themselves seem like the good guys. Doflamingo took over Dressrosa by deposing the royal family and rewriting history to make himself seem like the good guy. The world government erases anyone that disobeys from history. Doflamingo uses sugar to erase anyone that disobeys from history. The One Piece world is a dystopia where no one knows how bad things are. Dressrosa is a dystopia where no one knows how bad things are. These are not coincidental parallels. Oda is extremely blatant with it. He outright spells it out for the reader that Dressrosa is explicitly meant to represent the world government in miniature. There is no subtext, there is no interpretation, this is overtly stated to be the point. And so looking at the state of Dressrosa, perfectly and deliberately paralleling the state of the One Piece world at large, what is the moment that everything in Dressrosa changes? It is the moment when Doflamingo's monopoly on truth is destroyed. everything changes the moment that Sugar is defeated. The moment when all the memories are released, the moment where suddenly the truth comes rushing out across Dressrosa. Pandora's box is opened as everyone across all of Dressrosa is suddenly instantaneously flooded with information. Memories, history, all that information that Doflamingo had erased, suddenly and all at once everyone knows the truth. The truth about Doflamingo, the truth about what type of a ruler he is, the truth about what he does to those that disobey. That is the turning point of Dressrosa, and the turning point that launches the final conflict of the arc. Because in the same moment that everyone realizes the truth, what does Doflamingo realize he must do in response? A great cleansing. The birdcage. The moment everyone in Dressrosa knows who Doflamingo actually is and what he actually does, Doflamingo decides that it's better to just wipe the slate clean and openly exercise absolute force. As he explains, while it was easier to sell people a lie and have them obediently obey, he was always willing to exercise open, absolute force if necessary. So, in a nutshell, Dressrosa, the island that is deliberately meant to mirror the larger One Piece world, what happens there? The truth about the dystopic regime is revealed to everyone all at once, the people rise up in anger, Doflamingo begins the Great Cleansing in response, and the great climactic battle of Dressrosa begins. And so look now at Egghead Island. We are at the start of the final saga. This saga is supposed to be a great war against the world government, but how would this war start? What would make everyone realize the truth about the world government? And what would make the world government decide to show its true colors and enact a great cleansing? Well, up till now, there was no built-in magic method to release the truth on a giant scale. It's not like the sugar effect in Dressrosa, where all of a sudden everyone can magically simultaneously find out the truth about how evil the regime they are under actually is. Well, that is, there was no mechanism for that to happen up until Punk Records. It's genius. The entire story of One Piece has been building up to the importance of Vegapunk. But what is the true reason that he is so important to the story? Why was it so crucial that Oda started building up the existence of some ultra-genius scientist in the One Piece world? At the end of the day, Oda never needed to attribute all of the world government's technology to a single person. Oda could have just told us all along that the weapons we see, like the pacifistas, are being developed by the world government's science division, and left it at that. It's a fictional story. We would never have questioned that the world government's resources allow it to develop high-level technology. But for some reason, it was always important that from the start, all this technology was attributed to one man. A man who turns out to be a maverick, with independent goals from the world government. Why? Why is it so important that the story had to have a Vegapunk? And on top of that, why are we starting the final saga with the Egghead Island arc in the first place? Why was it important that the Straw Hats even go to this island in the first place? Is it really that important for the Straw Hats to encounter the Seraphims early on? Is this detour just so that we get a cool fight between the Straw Hats and Kizaru? Or was all of this from the start about Punk Records? Did Oda, from early on in One Piece, realize that he needed some grand mechanism for the truth to be revealed in the One Piece world? The same way a mechanism like Sugar was needed in Dressrosa to unveil the truth to the entire island in one dramatic moment and trigger the final battle, on a larger scale, did Oda always know that he needed a dramatic way to make everyone in the world simultaneously realize that the world government is evil and trigger the final war? If so, is that why Vegapunk was created? This genius, reclusive, secretly rebellious, maverick scientist created so that Oda could write in a forbidden source of ultimate truth in the story. The most important plot device in all of One Piece, Punk Records. A single source with all of the recorded history of the evils of the world government all stored away in one place, that most importantly can transmit information through brainwaves. Punk Records is not a poneglyph. This is not something people would need to read and decipher to find out the truth. Punk Records has all the truth that the world needs to know, and it has the capacity to transmit that information through brainwaves. And while at the moment it only transmits to Vegapunk via antenna, that only means that's how it works in its currently functioning and stable state. With sci-fi logic, there is no reason a destroyed Punk Records wouldn't release information on a widespread, uncontrolled level. After all, Vegapunk's entire goal is to have everyone have access to the knowledge of Punk Records, and the potential dangers of everyone gaining access to so much knowledge has already been hinted at. So ultimately, why even write such a powerful device with so much potential like this into the story if nothing is to come of it? Punk Records is like a giant, potentially world-breaking Chekhov's gun. Think about the only logical possibilities for Punk Records in the narrative as it stands right now. Punk Records is clearly physically tied to Egghead Island, but we also have learned that Vegapunk wants to leave Egghead Island by the end of the arc. Since Punk Records cannot be taken off the island, and since the island is about to be seized by the Marines anyway, whatever significance Punk Records has must come into play before the arc ends and the Marines take over, otherwise it's out of the action. So look at the questions we have lined up. How can Punk Records be used by the end of the arc? Why was a giant source of truth that can transmit information via brainwaves even written into the story? And what does it mean when Oda says there is about to be a huge incident? Also ask yourselves, now that we are in the final saga, what could possibly trigger the final war? What could possibly make the entire world simultaneously and unambiguously realize the truth about the world government? And what would, in turn, make the world government take off its mask and start a great cleansing? Don't all signs point to this singular, ominous device that would tie it all together? Punk Records. And finally, let's remember one question that many readers had been asking for a very long time, which was, when are we gonna get to see Vegapunk? Vegapunk, if you may remember, was the most mysterious character that Oda withheld for by far the longest amount of time in the series, for over 1050 chapters. Why was he, of all characters, being withheld? Wouldn't it make sense if all along Vegapunk was created to be the trigger for the final war, which is precisely why we were never meant to encounter him till the final saga began, as the arc that we meet Vegapunk was always planned to be the arc that the final war begins. And with all that being said, the enticing possibility of the destruction of Punk Records is looming over the horizon, because a battle is coming. If we assume that what would cause all of the information of Punk Records to flood out into the world would be if Punk Records were to break, well, the setup for that is right around the corner. Think about it. If anyone were to be the one to trigger the final war, it would be Luffy. Deliberately or accidentally, if anyone is meant to be the cause for the world to turn upside down, it's him. That is who Luffy has been since the start of the story, all the way till today. If ever there were a device that is really not supposed to be broken because the consequences could shake the entire world, it would be Punk Records. And if ever there were a character who would end up foolishly breaking it anyway, it would be Luffy. And so, again, we are in the final saga, but we have no trigger yet for the final war. But then why are we here on Egghead Island to start this saga? Why is it important that there is a fight that is about to break out on this island? What type of incident could this fight result in? Could this battle against the Marines lead to Luffy breaking the one thing that should never be broken, a device that could flood the entire world with information transmitted directly to people's brains about the truth of the world government? Everything comes together, the purpose of Egghead Island, the purpose of Vegapunk as a character, and why Oda created him so long back as a way to create the ultimate source of truth for the One Piece world, the entire logic of this Egghead Island arc being the arc that starts the final saga, it's all because the trigger for the final war is activated with everyone finally knowing the truth thanks to Punk Records. This is the sugar moment, but for the entire world. The moment the world government's monopoly on the truth disappears, and the moment the world government is spurred into action to begin a great cleansing. By the end of Egghead Island, the arc that begins the ending saga of One Piece, the final war of the story will begin. So let me know if you agree in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this video then definitely like and subscribe, and you can get my extended thoughts on this and all future topics by becoming a member. Just hit the button below.